Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our local league capacity building series. This is the fifth event in our monthly series of workshops designed leagues to help build capacity, provide skills and experience on things to help your league run a little bit better. Tonight, I am thrilled to introduce Preston Scheimer of the Greater Pittsburgh Area League. Preston is a longtime league member, longtime Pittsburgh area member, also served on the state board, and I had the pleasure of working with him when I first joined the league back in October 2020. So Preston is also one of coordinated the efforts of getting the Greater Pittsburgh League 501c3 status on behalf of his league. So I had invited Preston to talk about this subject at the convention, the state convention, but I gave him about 15 minutes. So I decided to give him a little bit more time and go into more depth on this topic. So with that, Preston, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks very much. And the only one whose league I do not know is Pam's. Pam, what league are you? You have to.
Clarion County.
Clarion?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
We're very small.
Yes, you are, but you're close to a great river. Okay, well, the first question I wanted to ask everybody is to confirm that I think you all, I know Clarion is, but I think you all are probably have leagues where your annual budget is not more than $50,000. Is that true of everybody?
That is true.
Okay. Then that means that we will principally try and deal with the easy form, and including maybe helping to explore why Barbara's application's been turned down. We might, when we go through that, we might have some insights.
Sure.
Generally, when leagues start to address this question of tax status, they're coming from either they're a brand new league and they don't have any tax status, which is a nice position to be in actually, or they're an existing league and they're classified typically as a 501c4. And the question is, really, why did we start off as a 4? Because that was what was apparently done. I don't really have the answer to that, because it would have been fine to have started off as a 3. But most of us find ourselves starting off as 501c4s. And the difference is, primary difference is that if you're a 3, you're really considered a true nonprofit, and the funds you receive are tax deductible at the federal level. And that's a tremendous benefit. So I thought I'd start off with talking a little bit about the benefits that we've found by shifting to being a 3, and then talk about some of the questions that we had to deal with in Pittsburgh. But you'll get the same questions from your league members, I think. And so it's helpful to understand what the answers are to some of those questions. And then I thought we would take a little bit of a deep dive into the 501c3 1023 easy form and explore that, because if you can get approval as using that form, it's a heck of a lot easier. There's a financial benefit. The fee to get a 501c3 with an easy form is $275. If you have to go the long form, it's $600, and it is significantly more detailed and time consuming and hard to do, the long form application. We had to do that long form application because of the size of the Pittsburgh budget. And I don't regret having to do it. It was a wonderful exercise and stuff, but it was a 2-year process basically. So it is slow and whatever. But so let's take a look at some of those questions. I'm going to share my screen. And it's always See here where we are. Did I close down the one that I wanted to use? Okay, how's the now why is the one I want to use not there? Well, we'll go into Word and just see if I can get it from there. Okay, both are there. All right, good. We're going to use this one first, make it big screen, and then I'll have to go into the view and let's see, the one pager. Okay, and how does it look at your end? Can you see it clearly, or should I try and make it even bigger?
Looks
I've
clear.
got-
Okay, we'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so anyway, the question boils down to, and is the way that money is spent for lobbying. The league typically thinks of itself as being a lobbying organization, when in fact the league is really not. It's an educational organization, and it's important to go in when you're to think of yourself as being primarily educating, even though you are talking to legislators, even though you are educating them on the impacts of a given bit of legislation that you would like them to know about and maybe to vote against, but you're doing it from an educational perspective. You're not taking them out to fancy golf clubs and playing games with them, and or spending money or making donations to their political campaigns, those kind of things. And so it becomes important to recognize that the substantial amount of our activities are not lobbying, they're actually education. So a 501c4 organization, first of all, can support and oppose candidates. Well, the league by definition does not do that. We don't support or oppose candidates at all. So right away, and since the 501c3 cannot do that, we're a candidate for a 3. And then going down a little bit lower, it's a matter of how you define our activities. And it boils down to that if you can define activities based on the amount of money that you're spending on it, or the amount of member participation. In other words, hours that you're spending on it. The league properly can define itself, and our efforts are based on volunteer time, people time, the hours we put into something, but we rarely spend money. In Pittsburgh, for example, we haven't spent money on candidates or lobbying or any of those activities for years. And probably none of you are doing that either. So we would meet the requirement of a C3 totally, because we define what our activities are in terms of the hours we work, the volunteer hours, not in terms of money. And where that comes into play is, and this is where I need to show the other Word document, which is this one. We'll see if we can get it to be bigger as well. because this is something which you will want to go on. The Zoom taskbar always gets on top of what you want to look at. Okay, are you seeing the proposed bylaw change?
Yeah.
You are?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So this is my point about describing how you're going to account for your educational or quote lobby activities is in a paragraph which is in the IRS code, and you have to modify your bylaws to reflect the way you're going to do the accounting. So we found that we had to introduce in our bylaws a paragraph called charitable policy. And by the way, all of these things are in the shared drive that Sam's going to make available to all of you. And I think some of you have already been at it. But basically, you have to insert into your bylaws, if you don't have it, what your charitable policy is. And it basically says that we do not do things, spend money to influence legislation. And then in the financial administration, you indicate that, well, the first part is if we dissolve, we give the money to the state CEF fund, if Pittsburgh goes out of business. But then the third part is where we define substantial expenditures. And this is where we were talking about how you define it as being hours worked and so forth. So this document sets forth what you have to do in your bylaws, but then it also describes what it is you have to tell your membership. And it has to be done. You have to put the bylaws through. Once there, then you're home free in terms of being able to operate as a 3. Did I muddle that enough? Are there questions about that?
I have a question. So you pass these bylaws before you put in your application or after? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, well, you do have to put them in. You really can put them in at any time. We put them in 17, which was the year we were applying. The advantage of doing that is that when, as part of the long form, not the short form, the long form requires you to submit your bylaws to the IRS. So
Okay.
this way I was able to have the change bylaws go in for their review. But in the short form, you do not submit your bylaws. So it's not as big a deal. You could do it after you have the 3. The interesting thing is that the State League has been running some other programs that I've been sitting in on. And it was very interesting to know that you can declare your status and go through the application process. The letter you get from the IRS confirms your status as a 501c3. You get a letter from the director and it confirms your status. So a new league like Westmoreland County League could declare right away that they're a 501c3, go through the application process. And if they were turned down, then they might have to either fight that one or go in and try and do another form like a 4 and get that approved. But during that interim period when they could actually function as a 3, I didn't know that. We, of course, were a 4 and had to convert to a 3. So that didn't really apply to us. But I would suggest that you do your, because you're an easy application, Pam, you don't really have to deal with this.
Thank you.
Okay, so then let's take a look at the, we'll go through unsharing. And then the next thing I want to take and show is the easy application questionnaires, because when you go to the IRS website, and you go in and the first thing they say is, are you qualified to do the easy form? And so I thought it would be worthwhile taking a look at that form and the qualifying questions and see if you meet the standard. So that's the actual form itself. Well, let's see if that will bring up. Okay, we still have this Word document in the way. This is the 1023 easy form. We'll come back to that if we can. Stop share. And let's see if I can find the other one. There we are. Okay, this is the easy form questionnaire, and it comes what?
Just a warning that we have a tornado warning for this area.
Okay.
We might lose power.
Oh, okay. For those of you who don't know, that's Annette, my wife. We've just been warned that we have a tornado warning, so we might lose power. Anyway, this is the first form that comes up, and it's full of instructions for the 1023 easy. You get halfway down it, and then it shows you basically a questionnaire. And so this might be the clue as to why Barbara was rejected. I don't know. But anyway, the first question is, do you get more than $50,000? And then they ask you again, in the past 3 years. Okay. And then, do you have assets of more than $250,000? Probably the answer to those first three were no. Are you formed under the laws of a foreign country? No. Is your mailing address in a foreign country? No. Are you a successor or controlled by an entity that was suspended under Section 501p for a terrorist organization? Well, probably not. Some might think the League's a terrorist organization, but not all of us. Are you organized as an entity other than a corporation? And it could be yes or no, but if you are a league at this point, my guess is all of you are incorporated. Am I right on that? Everybody incorporated? Okay. So, and then are you formed as so the answer would be, you organized as an entity other than, so you'd say no, you're a corporation. Are you formed as for a for-profit? No. Are you a successor of a for-profit? No. Were you previously revoked from a tax exempt status? And probably the answer to that is no. And are you currently recognized as tax exempt under another form of 501s? And this is where Pam, you might have, or Barbara, you might have been rejected. Although I'm not sure I remember I answered that no.
I did too.
Okay.
You know, Preston, you had put me in touch with Tom Carson out in California, who was a huge help. And we went through this whole free application questionnaire. And we were able to answer no to everything. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
okay. And you're not a church. So, and you're not a school or a university. And you're not a hospital. And you're not an agricultural research organization. And you're not a co-op hospital. And we're not a cooperative service organization. So and you're not in a qualified charitable risk pool. So the answers to all of these would have been no. And you're really not a supporting organization. So, and you don't do credit counseling. You don't invest your assets in other securities that are not publicly traded. All of these things, your answers were no. So let's assume that the rest of you are able to go through and you try this and you submit it. And you get no's everywhere. So that would encourage you to then you do have to identify an exempt entity code. So in any event, you go through this process, and if you keep coming up with, the no answers, you are basically expecting you could go forward and complete the form. So let's take a look at that form. This is the one I filled out for Pittsburgh. And again, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing they want to know is your address, your contacts, who your officers are, where they live, and so forth. And then there's the questions. Are you incorporated? Well, you don't have to be. You can be an unincorporated. I think probably every league at this point incorporated. And then you'll have an EIN number, which is you all know what that is. And they want to know the state you're incorporated in. And then Section 500C requires your organizing document must limit your purposes to one of the exempt things. I'm going to make this be a little bit bigger, sorry. And that was very interesting. I don't know if any of you have taken a look at your incorporation documents. I was very surprised to see how little information is on the Pittsburgh League's corporate documents you get from the state. There was not a big statement about our purpose or just about anything that established that we were incorporated. However, I did have to make copies and send those in with the application. So I was able to say that our contains our purpose, but it was almost nothing. Then the second thing is, must not expressly empower you to engage in something other than your primary activities. Check that. And then provides upon dissolution. Well, it does. We rearranged that we would give it to the state's education fund. And you never got to this step, Pam? Pam, did you, Barbara, sorry, did you get to this step?
I'm sorry, Preston, what do you mean? We filled out this complete application. Yes, I'm following along with it. Yes.
Okay. So, and you identified yourself as educational.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
And our corporate, when we apply, we only recently applied to be a corporation. And so, again, I had gone talked to Tom Carson, about the proper wording that would work with the IRS as well as the state of Pennsylvania, licensing or whatever registration. And so I know our language is good. So
yeah. Okay. So, and you did education.
Mhm.
And then you read the things you must refrain from opposing candidates, not a problem. And these other points. And then they make you basically take an oath that won't influence legislation, that you won't pay compensation to your officers, you won't donate funds, all of these various points, which should for us all be no's. And then they want you to select this box if no more of a third of your support comes from activities that are not beyond the scope of your exempt function. Well, it says that you attest that you normally receive more than 1/3 of your support from a combination of gifts and memberships and so forth, which is true. That's what we do. And most leagues do. We are not a benefit of a college, and we don't get money from public sources. And then we are not a private foundation. So you leave that box unchecked and you basically come down and you sign it
Mhm.
and you send it off with your money.
Right.
Okay, so you went through all of that.
Mhm.
Pam, did you see anything along the way that would raise questions about, Clarion being able to sign that?
Well, I noticed one of the items, it's number 6 currently on the screen. Do you or will you donate funds to pay expenses for individuals? So like, my board just passed a motion to pay my registration fee for the national convention. So that's like paying an expense for an individual, namely me. So would I have to say yes to that if we decided to do this?
We did check yes there.
Okay.
So
I didn't
that
check.
like that?
And it's the narrow way in which my mind said pay expenses for an individual. I considered that conference fees were an expense of the league, not for the individual.
Oh, I see.
So I said no.
And did anybody ask you about that?
No,
or-
no.
Okay.
Well, of course, I wasn't qualified to do this form, so I don't really know how I would have, but that's the way I would have answered the question. An individual expense, I would say, would be that you needed the league to pay for the air conditioning bill for your house.
Oh,
Okay. The expenses to go to the convention you could, as an individual member, go to the convention, but we only pay for our delegates. So
mhm.
that's why and I'm sure that's your case too. You're paying for your delegates. And
Yes.
so that's a league expense as opposed to individual. We didn't pay. So anyway, that's the way I would have rationalized or answered that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know whether or not that one is what stopped you, Barbara.
That could have been just that one answer, right?
Yep.
No? Mm.
And I can understand the, what your thinking was, but
And even Tom in California, he said, yeah, you can check yes to that. That's a reasonable use of your money,
Yep.
So.
okay. Well, anyway, that's why I answered no, because
Uh-huh. And I understand your interpretation. Your interpretation seems just as valid. And
Yeah.
we had answered no, darn it. So,
and of course, I think Tom's experience probably was not as when he did it for his league, he had to do the long form. So
well,
Maybe
he's
another-
done short ones too. He's worked
Has he?
with a lot of leagues across the country.
yes, he has. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's done some short ones too. So, yeah. Hmm. Maybe we just got an agent who was having a really bad day,
Well, I suspect you went through a computer scanner that had a bad day.
Yeah, that was the first. Yeah,
I think
and
that's,
probably a little thing like a no or a yes would trigger that too and throw it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
and probably they're programmed to reject as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's the way that I think you'd be successful in answering the easy form. By the way, the code that we used, remember in the instructions, there
Mhm.
were all of these codes that you had to apply. We used the R40. I don't know whether that
We
was
use
good.
W99.
Okay. I wonder what's
Totally
the-
forget which one that is or why we chose that.
W99. Public
W99.
society benefit multi-purpose or under NEC. I can sort of see that.
Again, that was, Tom Carson. So
And we used, did I say R34? No, R30, what did I say? We used?
our 44, I'm sorry.
Oh, you said R40, voter education
R40,
registration.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
R40.
Um,
Voter
voter education registration.
Yeah. Much more direct, huh?
Yeah. Interesting. Because that's really, I mean, voter education and registration is what we do, among other things. But that was the one we used. I don't know, maybe that triggered it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I wonder why Tom chose the broader one for us.
Yeah. Don't
Like-
know.
Question that more.
But there's that R series is sort of in our bailiwick. I mean, there's 24 is women's rights, other civil liberties advocacy, which is a 60, but voter education and registration was right on as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, that just nails it, right?
Yeah. Okay, let me stop sharing the screen, and we've covered the bylaw changes and the easy form. Let me just go back to this, sharing the screen for one other thing, and that's this one here. This was the basically the one screen that we had for the state convention, but we've covered the league being incorporated. You've got that. You've got your EIN numbers, and there's the link, of course, to the IRS. We looked at the easy form, and then, however, I do say that the step is you go to the long form if you get rejected. We could take a look at the long form if you'd like.
Scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
It's scary.
So let me see if I've got that one.
I know I have a copy of it, Tom. You sent me your copy.
Oh, you got one from Tom? Oh, you got
Preston,
mine?
rather. Preston, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've got mine. If the package that you end up sending in, Pam, just so you'll know that you'll want to struggle hard to get the easy form way. The information that you send in, along with the form, there's a checklist that you have to complete all the boxes. You have to send in your bylaws. You have to send in a draft budget. There's your incorporation documents, and then there are a bunch of other schedules. So it's a big deal. Let me see if I can go to show the checklist. By the way, we are experiencing high winds out here.
Oh, no.
I think I had some thunder over here.
Yeah,
And the sun is shining where I am.
nice.
all the way down in the southeast corner of the state. So far away from you folks.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can get back up here. Are you looking at, I'm trying to see what you're seeing at this point. Are you seeing the Form 23 checklist?
No, we're still seeing the slide you had for the convention.
Okay, this is the
There you go.
checklist one.
Oh, okay.
And it gives you an idea of the extensiveness of it. This is, it shows you all the various forms you're going to have to do. Then you have the schedules you're going to complete. And then it's basically it's all of this is the submission. So those schedules, there's a through H that you have to fill out. Some of them you don't, in which case you check them, no. But it is fairly long and detailed. So actually, I'm wondering what more I can tell you about it until you've gone down the path and experienced the forms. Are you discouraged, Pam?
I'm discouraged, yeah. I have no idea what, if we have a power of attorney and a declaration of representative. I mean, I don't know, I have no idea.
That's true. And actually the benefit of going through the long form is that it did force us to dig out and find all of those kind of documents because I really didn't have access to them, myself. So I had to dig all of that stuff out. Some of it, the only significant ones are the bylaw changes that, have had a long standing impact on us. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that it is really worth it. We have found that foundations are somewhat unwilling, are much more willing to give us money as a C3 than they were as a 4.
Mhm.
Individuals have been much more willing. And there is a phenomenon going on right now where some people in their estate planning dealings with their lawyers and their financial planners and so forth are being advised to set up personal foundation or basically it's a foundation, but outfits like Vanguard and Fidelity are enabling you to transfer money from a IRA account and can put it in and get a big tax deduction. So I'm finding that we're getting donations coming from these family trusts, if you will.
Mhm.
And that would not have been possible if we were not a C3.
Mhm. True.
So it has really improved our ability to raise money from individuals, but also foundations. So that alone makes it worthwhile.
Mhm.
But it's work.
And frustrating.
Yes, and frustrating. Yes. Yeah.
But, oh, well.
So I think that's all I had for the moment. And I can tell you that the weather is pretty bad. We had the power, the lights flashed a little bit ago. So I think it probably would be advisable to terminate, Meg. While we still can.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Preston. Nice to see you again. And thanks for, the opportunity to go over everything again and look at it. So I hadn't dragged it out
Well,
for that rejection letter.
And I
So,
hope we haven't turned Kathy off totally from trying it, but it is definitely worthwhile. And once it's done, you'll be very, very happy. And from an accounting point of view, it is so much easier
mhm.
because you don't have to worry about putting in applications to get money from the Ed Fund to pay for this and so forth. Everything can go to your purposes. It is nice.
Justin. And
Okay.
feel free to send me anything you would like me to reshare with the recording. And I'll send your email out as well, if that's okay, if anyone has
Sure.
questions. Okay, great. All right, everyone, we'll have a great night. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this, Megs, and take care, everybody. Good luck.
Bye.
Good luck, Pam.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank-
Bye.
Bye.